Hey everyone! Welcome to today's video. I'm back with a part 2 to my how to hand letter video that I made a few weeks ago. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it in the cards above. I wanted to make a part 2 to show how you can decorate and further enhance your hand lettering. For all of my examples today, I will be featuring them in this B5 Notebook Therapy dotted journal. For those of you who may be curious, I just created a border here using some washi tape that I got from Archer & Olive, part of their neon collection a couple of years ago. So for today's video, I went ahead and separated all of the examples into 4 different categories. For my hand lettering today, I'm mainly going to be using my Tombow dual brush pens in a variety of different shades. So in this first example, I just wrote out the word basic in that Tombow dual-ended brush pen, and then I just went ahead and outlined it using my Sakura Pigma Micron in the 08 size here. However, you can go ahead and use any black gel pen that you have. This is just self-explanatory, just a basic outline around your hand lettering. For the second example, I went ahead and just wrote the word out color in hand lettering, and then I went in with a matching gel pen, specifically the Sakura Jelly Roll Moonlight gel pen in 06, and I just went ahead and outlined the word. I find that this technique usually looks better if you use a slightly darker shade of gel pen compared to the shade that you use to hand letter with. I tried before using a lighter gel pen to outline it, and I find that it just doesn't look as defined and as good. So go ahead and experiment with it on your own and see which look you prefer. This one may be a little bit more difficult to tell in video, but I just went ahead and took a metallic gold gel pen and just outlined the word shimmer with it. The gel pen that I used to outline this word is this Pentel hybrid dual metallic gel pen in the shade gold. For anyone on the hunt for a good gold gel pen, I highly recommend this one. This one is definitely my favorite. For this last example for outlines, then I went ahead and just used a Tombow dual brush pen, the brush marker, to hand letter the word marker, and then I just flipped it over to this thinner end and outlined it. And as you can see, it creates kind of just a deeper version of that shade. So that does it for the outlines category. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. The next category here is shadows, so I do have a couple of examples for this one. Starting off with this first example of a shadow, I just went ahead and took that same Sakura Pigma Micron in the 08 and basically just added a shadow to one side of all of the letters, and that just kind of creates a three-dimensional look to the letters. For the second shadow example, I just went ahead and took my Tombow Fudenosuke in the hard tip, and I went ahead and created a thicker drop shadow to this word. So as you can see, whichever one you do prefer, you can just go with a thinner shadow to create the dimension, or you can go with a thicker one. This one may be a little bit difficult to tell on camera as well, but as you can see, I wrote out the word soft in hand lettering, and I just went in with a light gray to create a soft faded shadow. So not as intense as the black ones from before. So if you prefer the look of a softer shadow with the gray, you can go ahead and do that one as well. For this fourth example, I went ahead and used another Tombow dual brush pen to write out the word distant, and then again taking my Sakura Pigma Micron in the 08 size, I just went ahead and added a line to represent the shadow, but I left a little bit of negative space in between the actual hand lettering, so this gives it more of an interesting dimensional look compared to the other shadow examples. Again, this one may be pretty difficult to see on camera again. It wasn't the best light shade to use, but hopefully I can explain it to where it'll still make sense. I basically just took a light blue shade and hand lettered the word monochrome, and then I just took a deeper blue shade and created the shadow for that. Hopefully you can kind of get an idea of how it's supposed to look like, but go ahead and give it a try and hopefully it comes out better on your end. Now moving on to the next page, the next category will be highlights, so let's go ahead and jump into that one. So this first example under highlights is probably my most used highlight example, just going in with a white Uniball gel pen like this, and just going in and creating some broken up lines with some dots just to give off the illusion of shine. This next example, I hand lettered the word marquee, and I just went ahead and added some little white dots along the downstroke, so the thickest part of each letter. And I thought that this kind of gave off like marquee lights, kind of just with the highlights of the dots and thought that that looked pretty cute as well, so definitely something that you can try out with your lettering as well. This third one is a little similar to the previous one, the marquee. However, for this one, then I basically just did dashes instead of the dots, so just a slightly different look if that is what you prefer. This last example of highlights is what I would call an inline. It's a little similar to the first example of shine. However, with shine, I feel like that kind of gives it more of a bubbled effect, whereas inline, then it's basically the opposite of outline. It's just doing a line in the downstroke, so that kind of creates an interesting illusion on the letters as well. Moving on to the fourth and final category, which is just a miscellaneous / combinations category. Alright, so these first two are more of a combination, if anything. This first one is basically a combination of an outline as well as a shadow. However, I didn't feel like they deserved to be in one category over the other. It's more of a combination in my opinion. It just has this hollowed out shadow. The same goes with hatch, basically just another outline and then including the shadow, but just adding the dashed lines or the hatch lines to create that shadow. I personally think that they look better with the outline and adding the shadow to them. I don't think that they would look very good just with the shadow part, if that makes any sense. So that's why I saved these two for this last category. This next one is a relatively simple one, I would say, and one that I do most often would be this gradient, where I pretty much just hand letter a word and then I go over the top half of each letter again using the same marker. You can try this using a combination of other colors. If you wanted to do more of like an ombre or something like that, you can start off with like a lighter color and then go back over the top or the bottom part of the letters and use a different color to give it like that dual tone look. So just go ahead and play around with it, play around with all of these, experiment with them, do different looks with them. You can absolutely combine all of them, combine and mix and match categories to fit whichever aesthetic or look you are going for. So let's go ahead and just combine a few of these just so that you can get a better idea of how they work together. So one of my go-to hand lettering combinations would basically be hand lettering a word, adding the gradient, adding a basic outline, and adding a thick drop shadow, as well as adding this first highlight. So let me go ahead and show that to you. So first off, just hand lettering a word, in this case the word classic, and then I will go ahead and add the gradient. So just going over the top half of each letter with a second coat of the marker, and this will slightly darken the top part. Now I'd like to go in with the basic outline here. So taking my Sakura Pigma Micron in the 08 once more, just going to outline the word. Now that the outline is done, I'm just going to take my Tombow Fudenosuke in the hard tip, and I will go ahead and create this thick shadow. Now you definitely don't need this specific pen to create this thick outline. You can go ahead and, for instance, use just a normal fine tip pen and write out the word using this hollow shadow, and then just fill it in with a pen. However, this Tombow Fudenosuke does make it just go by a little bit quicker. So it's definitely just for convenience. Alright, now that that is done, the last thing I'm going to add to this word would be this first example of highlights, this shine version. So again, just focusing the white gel pen along the thick downstroke. Switching between dashes and dots just to create that bubbly, shiny effect. Alright, so there is that example, and then I will go ahead and do another one. So for this last example, I'm just going to be combining a couple of things again. This time I'm obviously going to hand letter a word, and then I will go ahead and outline it once more with the gel pen, but then I will also go in with a shadow, and then this time let's go ahead and experiment with the inline. Typically I would always do just this top version of highlights. That's kind of my go-to, but I think for this last one, let's go ahead and just play around with a different highlight. So once more, I'm going to add the gradient. I forgot to mention that earlier when I was selecting my enhancements. If you want the gradient to be more intense, you can always go in with another layer on top, perhaps on like the top third of the letters, just to give it that very obvious gradient look. So we'll go ahead and add that. I don't know if that really makes that big of a difference on camera, but something worth trying. I'm just going to take a Sakura Jelly Roll Moonlight pen in this deeper rose shade. You can use any gel pen in this case, but I do prefer the look of these Moonlight pens just because they are very bold and very intense and vibrant, and the colors come out very smoothly and evenly on the paper. There really aren't any streaks from what I noticed, so I tend to prefer these. Alright, Alright, so now that that word is outlined, I'm going to go ahead and just create a shadow by extending the color out towards one side. Alright, so now that the shadow has been created with that gel pen, then the last thing to do is to just go in and create this inline highlight. So once again, just creating a solid white line down the downstroke. Well, that does it for today's video. I hope that you guys found it helpful and that this gives you some ideas on how to enhance your hand lettering. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, or video suggestions down below. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!